Today we're going to talk about Boubacar Kamara of Olympique Marseille, whether he's good enough for Chelsea Football Club or better than other players that the club is looking at. But before we continue, please smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't, and more importantly, click on the bell notification button so you don't miss anything. So, let's get into it. Today I have with me in the studio Awn from Let's Talk Ball with Awn. Awn, welcome back to Chelsea Perspective.
Hello everyone, I hope everyone watching is going to enjoy this video. I just want to say thank you for having me back on this channel. I'm very happy to be on and I love discussing Chelsea and talking with you. I hope that today it's going to be a good one.
Yes, Awn, it will definitely be a good one because you know your stuff and it's always good to talk football with you. So, Awn, tell us why you scouted Boubacar Kamara of Olympique Marseille.
All right. First of all, there are a lot of things that went into my thought process going into this, choosing this player. But first of all, I just wanted to highlight that he is 21, so he is young, but he has played a lot of games. I think if you add all the minutes that he's played, they amount to about 88 professional matches, whether in the cups and in the leagues and such. So he is experienced at such a young age. He can play two positions, which I think is very important for us and the way Tuchel plays, is that he can play as a center back and he can play as a defensive midfielder. He started off as a center back and made that switch later on in his career. I think right now we are at a position in the transfer market where we are going to make one big signing and we are going to need to make some reinforcements in other positions, but they won't be that big maybe because it will be a big price on the first signing. So this will be a very good cheap option because he has 1 year left on his contract. He's not looking to extend. So we might even get him for free next season if we try. But if we go in this season, financially, the teams in France right now without a TV deal and such, I think they're not at the best situation financially. So Olympique Marseille will be needing some money. I think we can go in for him for about 15 to 20 million. His value is about 35. I think that's a very good offer. Just from a business standpoint, for me, it makes sense. He's a young player. I think our center back position lacks some youth. He can offer competition in the midfield area as well. So moving forward, I think he has improved consistently every season and he's going to continue to improve. He's not a perfect player by any means, but I will highlight his strengths and weaknesses. But moving forward, I think we should just keep an eye on him right now. Keep him on our watch list as an option. Maybe not go all out and have him as our #1 target, but just keep him in mind because he is talented and I think he can do very good stuff for Chelsea.
Okay, I truly do understand your point. He's versatile enough to play in the defense as a center back and also as a central midfielder. Is it defensive or?
Defensive, yes.
Defensive midfielder. The question I have for you, do we need reinforcement in that area? Because we have Ethan and Padu who's back at the club and we have other options also who could possibly play that role and execute it very well. We still have Bakayoko at the club. He hasn't left. And who else? Rose Barkley also, he could be converted to that role. There are other players that whom we could argue can play that role quite well. So do we really need reinforcement in that area?
Yeah, I completely understand your point. We do have a lot of players, but the squad right now is not going to be the same as it is coming towards the end of the window. I think we still have a lot of outgoings. We're going to loan a lot of the players, some of them that you have mentioned. I mean, I'm a big fan of Ampadu, but I don't think he's going to be in the squad this season. I think he's a very good player. He's shown a lot of maturity for his age, but I think he'll benefit from another loan than trying to play for Chelsea this season, maybe the next. As for Bakayoko, I think his time, I don't know. I think he's going to be looking for a way out of Chelsea this season, and the club is going to go the same way as well. So I think just to look at him, He is good. Competition is always good for the players. It can be iron sharpens iron, as they say sometimes, is that he's going to bring a boost. Right now in our midfield between Kante and Jorginho, there aren't a lot of midfielders that are going to start ahead of them, but we do need that added competition in that position, and we need some youth in the centre-back position as well.
Good response to that question. Isn't Boubacar a French international? Has he been integrated into the French senior team yet?
I'm not sure the senior team. He has played for the under-21 French team, but I'm not sure that he's made an appearance for the French team. There are a lot of midfielders ahead of him in that regard, but I think he's going to make it soon.
So, and you okay, he's going to make it soon, you said, and you think he's going to be comfortable playing second fiddle to N'Golo Kante?
I think we have a lot of games going into next season. He won't be a starter, but given that he plays across multiple positions and we do have aging players in that regard, he will get a lot of minutes and a lot of experience learning from these players. I think it's going to be okay going into a year or two where he's not the starter, but then establishing himself as a starter in the future.
Great response. Okay, now Own, we've cancelled out the players that I was concerned that he may nudge out of the team, or may have problem, that are capable of fulfilling that role, which included Timothée Bakayoko and Ethan Ampadu. Okay, great. We've established that they're probably not good enough to be in the team at this point. Now, what problem will Boubacar solve for the team? Because that's critical. He has to bring something to the table. N'Golo Kante, Jorginho, and Kovacic, because you could use them as a CM sometimes and not a CDM. What problem will he solve for us? Or what does he bring to the table that those guys don't already offer to the team? Because that's important. We don't just sign players because they're good. You have to complement what we already have. Or if you're the same as what we have, then you're coming to be part of the squad, play second fiddle to someone else, or maybe you're better than what we already have, then you'll be starting ahead of them. But we've established that he's not going to be starting ahead of the players we already have. So what will he bring to the team? How is he going to make the team better? That's the question I have for you right now.
Okay. First of all, we're going to start with links to this type of player. We have been linked with a defensive midfielder that can play as a centre-back. Whether those links are true or not in the papers, I don't know. You can never tell really in these types of situations. But we have been linked with players like Rice, Ben White, and Marquinhos, all of which play as a defensive midfielder that can play as a centre-back as well. I think Tuchel likes the profile a lot. Is that going in, he can offer us something the other midfielders can't, where he can cover for one of the centre-backs that move forward. In case Azpilicueta wants to join the attack, or Rudiger, sometimes he goes on those runs. He's very good at covering that space, playing as a centre-back. Another thing is that if he starts as a centre-back, let's say in a back three, maybe in game we want to shift in a back four, all he has to do is take a few steps forward and join the midfield. So that's something right now I don't see any of our midfielders, from the starting midfielders, being able to do. So from that aspect, this is what he brings to the table that the others don't. And we'll go into a bit of his strengths and weaknesses right now after this.
Okay, great response. Okay, yeah, good point there. Okay, but let me ask you, how does Boubacar compare to all the midfielders that we're looking at, which includes the likes of Tchouameni, Declan Rice, who else again, Kamavinga, as rumored? How does he compare to those players?
First of all, I'd like to say that Tchouameni would be my first choice for the midfield. I like him a lot. You've done a video on this channel about him. I really enjoyed that video. Okay. I think, but Boubacar Kamara, I think he's a different player. You can compare him to Rice. You can compare him. Kamavinga is a bit of a different player. But what he brings to the table is that maybe he might not be the #1 choice, but he will be a cheaper alternative. Is that at 15 million or at 20 million, he offers very much of the same that the other players offer, but at a very much cheaper price right now. So we have to factor in the price and the fact that he has the talent and the abilities as the other players, such as Declan Rice, maybe even slightly a better passer than Rice, which has been my main issue with Rice going forward.
Okay, well said. You said something about his value, a cheaper alternative to those guys, right? That's your main argument there, comparing them to those guys. Now, there's this saying that says you get what you paid for. You get what you
And
pay for. Coming to that, I'm a firm believer of great talents don't have to be expensive. But then again, you must also look back and say, in some cases, you get what you pay for. At 15 million pounds, you said, right? Do you think he's good enough overall? Is Boubacar good enough to play for Chelsea?
we are going to be getting him for 15 million, maybe 20 if we go for him right now. But we have to remember that his value is much more than that. His value is being scouted at around 35 million. So the price right now isn't factoring in his entire value and what he brings into the team. You do get what you pay for in most instances, but this is going to be a bargain, in my opinion, is that he will continue to improve. And a few years down the line, he'll be worth very much a lot more than what he is right now in terms of price.
How old is he again?
21.
21. Declan Rice is 21, right?
Yeah.
Or 22. I'm not sure what his how.
Something in that
Right.
range.
Okay, so they're about the same age, although Declan Rice is much more expensive and more experienced. Do you agree?
Yeah, he's definitely more experienced in the Premier League and maybe overall, but that doesn't mean that Kamara isn't experienced. He does have experience in the League, and overall transfers from the League to the Premier League, they do have a positive track record. So I think he's going to face a few bumpy first matches, but after that, he's going to get into the setting and he's going to be very good for Chelsea.
And how old is Tchouameni?
20 or 21, about the same age as Kamara. But Kamara is more experienced than Tchouameni.
Why? How so?
He's been playing for Marseille for the last 3 years, the last 2 of them as a starter. So you can say he has 2.5 seasons of starting experience for them. Tchouameni, I think this is his first, maybe second season where he started almost every game for them. Kamara has started more games and he's played more minutes.
Okay, that's by the way, I think your argument has been strong. It's not like he's a good player overall, and you've argued that he can get the job done even at 15 million. It's not you're arguing that the price tag doesn't really reflect his value as a player, and you argue that in the future or in a short time it could skyrocket because he's that good. Now the question is, let me ask you this question: are we looking at him?
I've read a few reports saying that Chelsea are scouting him and looking at him. I don't know if it's 100% true or not, but you can never tell. Is that Chelsea work in secret in most of these situations? You never know what the club is going to do, but I trust the club is that they know what's best and they know which players to look at in that regards. Is that there have been reports, but I'm not entirely sure if they're true or not.
Okay, yeah, you can tell. We cannot tell what is true and what's not true. There's quite a lot of rumors out there, and it's so confusing right now. Okay, let me ask you this: would you say he's better than all other options that the Chelsea Football Club is currently looking at? That includes Declan Rice, Tchouameni, Kamavinga, and who else again? Not Denis Zakaria is out of the question. I don't think the club are looking at him currently. Would you say he's better than those options specifically?
It's difficult to compare many of these players together, but I will say is that for a majority of them, he's at about the same level. And for the players that are slightly above him, it's not that far. It's not a very big gap. He is very close in terms of his level to the other players in that list as well.
Okay.
I'll go over his strengths and weaknesses if you want right now, so that we can give everyone
I'm
a better
coming to
picture.
that. I'm really trying to to maybe break you to admit that he's not good enough to the club for the club. But you've been great. Your responses have been spot on, and he's still in the list. So let me put it this way. Okay, right now you're saying that they're pretty much on the same level.
Yeah.
Right, and he probably had, and you've also argued that his offers more value than his price tag reflects. Can you overall take some time again, argue, put everything together, including his statistics, and convince the viewers or the fans and the board that we need Boubacar Kamara?
All right, definitely. I'm going to go into him as a player, what his strengths and weaknesses are, so that we can have a full picture about him, and then everyone can make their own decision, and let's see how that goes. As that going into him, his biggest strengths, as I said, is that his versatility, but we've already covered that earlier in the video. I'm going to move in right now into what his best aspects are. A lot of people argue that he's a very good tackler. He times his tackles very well. He has long legs, so he can get to those tackles and get them on time. He doesn't concede a lot of fouls when he goes for the tackles. But myself, I'm not a big fan of tackles. I think if you're going to make a tackle in a game, it's probably because you lost your player earlier on. I think that's an aspect he needs to improve on. But up till now, he has timed his tackles very well going forward. He's done about 3 tackles per game, and he's succeeded in most of them. He succeeded in 2.96 tackles per game. Not sure how many he attempted, but he does pretty well in that regard. Another thing is that he is very good in his awareness and his reading of the game, covering for other players and covering their positions. He has a good first touch. Is that when you pass him the ball, he can avoid the press just with his first touch alone, and he's confident with the ball. He carries the ball forward very well. He's a good dribbler for a player at his position, given that he's a center back and defensive midfielder. It's not quite often you see players comfortable with the ball carrying it forward, but he can do that pretty well. Going into his passing, I think his passing is very good. Short and medium range passes, we've seen it a lot when he plays. He's about 91% completion on those passes, and a majority of his passes
Vertical or horizontal passes?
They're all progressive. Majority of them are progressive
passes.
Yeah,
and
majority.
You said the accuracy is how much?
91%, and a majority
91%.
Yeah, and a majority of them, from what I looked up and what I saw, a majority of them are progressive. So he does carry the ball forward both with his dribbling and his passing, which is why I think he's a very good player. Long balls, he has attempted a lot of long balls, about 72% completed, but I still think that's a part of his game that he needs to improve on, and he definitely has it in him to improve his long balls. He reminds me a lot of a former Chelsea player in that regard from his passing, in David Luiz, and the fact that they play the same position, the centre back and the defensive midfielder. We've seen Luiz play that role. For the Chelsea fans right now watching, might give a better picture. He's a good passer of the ball, I think. Another thing is that his pressing is very good, which makes him important for a Tuchel side. He does a lot of interceptions in game. I think it's about 2 interceptions per game. Not quite sure on that. And he can cover out of position for teammates, as I said. We've covered his strengths, but now I'm going to go into his weaknesses. Given that he is a young player, his decision-making can still be questionable at times. He needs some guidance from an older player and an experienced manager. And I think he can have that at Chelsea, only to improve his decision-making. I said he's good at dribbling, but sometimes he can dribble the ball pretty much more than he should. Is that he'll carry the ball forward and it'll end up in a situation where it ends up slowing the play more than it should have. Weak foot passing definitely needs to improve. His one-on-ones against fast players definitely need to improve. And dealing with big spaces definitely need to improve. But when he plays for Chelsea, he'll have cover from a 3-at-the-back system and from N'Golo Kante as well, intercepting the ball higher up the field. So he will have cover in that regard, but it's definitely a part of his game that needs improving as well. So overall, he has a lot of strengths and he has weaknesses, which is to be expected. But I don't think any of the weaknesses are deal breakers, and the fact that he can definitely improve on them.
And how old, again, sorry, how old do you say he is?
21.
And and a 21 don't you think those are problems, those weaknesses are something he should have overcome by now?
I mean, 21 is still a pretty young age. I mean, maybe he should have done better in that regard, maybe. But moving forward is that he still is young. Is that he hasn't entered his prime yet, and that he still has.
I understand that he's still young, and you're arguing that it's a big maybe, truly. And now, if he comes to Chelsea, there's no guarantee he'll be starting games that much. So that means that also limits his development. Because as a young player, you need to play very often to get the chance to learn, to overcome those weaknesses. Because if you don't play, you don't get to learn and overcome those weaknesses. So why again should we sign him? At 21, if he still has those issues and you want us to sign him, and he's going to be playing second fiddle to N'Golo Kante most definitely. There's hardly the chance for him to start games more often. So how would he get the chance to play, learn, and overcome those weaknesses you've mentioned that he has?
We've seen it a lot in young players. There are two types of players that benefit from game time, which is a majority. But we've seen with other young players where when they're working with a good manager, they don't need to play as much games, is that they're learning in training, they're learning from talking with the manager and experiencing it, and then getting a few minutes here and there, and eventually getting those games. As that it doesn't happen often, but it is the case for a number of the young players. We've seen it with Foden. I'm not going to compare him to Foden right now because Foden is a very big talent. But Foden, for the first few years with Manchester City, he wasn't a starter. He didn't get that much games, but he was learning under Pep. And then when he was given those games, he got the chance. Then we have it here is that he's going to be learning from Tuchel. Tuchel is one of the best managers in the world. He's definitely going to improve his game. And then when he gets the game time, we're going to see how much he has improved his game. Is that Tuchel has made a lot of the players we've seen unfit or not good enough for Chelsea actually play at a very high level. Is that Tuchel can make these players improve and hide their weaknesses as well.
So overall, you arguing that he doesn't necessarily need to start games to overcome his weaknesses.
Ideally, they have to start games, but it's not a deal breaker in that regards because we've seen youngsters not get that much game time, but they are getting better every day, every training session. And then when they do get the games, it shows.
I mean, you've won. Perfect response. Yeah, because I pushed you and you really gave some responses that makes good sense. And the truth is you don't need to start games to overcome your weaknesses because you train with the team. And the manager sees you in training, and when you make mistakes, he corrects it. But also we must recognize that playing in a match or being on the pitch on the match day is different from training. So there are things you can learn on the pitch in a match day that you cannot learn during training, because during the match day you're playing with an opponent and the spirit of the whole atmosphere is different. But good argument. And I'm going to give you another opportunity again, Awn, to please try one more time. Tell us, the viewers, the board, and me, and whoever that is watching this, why again should we sign Boubacar Kamara? What problem will he help us solve? You haven't said anything about his goals contributions or goal assists from the midfield, because that's something we lacked this past season. We need, if I were the coach, I'll be looking for midfielders who will help improve the number of assists that our midfielders or improve upon the number of assists our midfielders had last season. Even combined, I don't think I don't know how many it is, but it's not something to write home about. The goals, will know how poor that was from our midfield, except from the penalties which Jorginho scored. Again. So my point is, how is he going to improve our team? I understand, aside from his versatility to play as a center back and in the midfield, how will Boubacar Kamara improve our team?
Okay, so he played 35 games in the league last season, but he only got 2 assists. So he's not going to come in and solve the goal scoring problems in our midfield or the creation in our midfield. I'm going to be honest on that. I'm not going to lie and say he's going to come in and score 20 goals or create 20 goals. That's a problem that he can't solve right now. Is that moving forward, is that we have been linked to a lot of DMs. And you can argue that if he gives the forward players more freedom, more time to express themselves, is that I can cover your position, go forwards, is that they can bring the assists and the goals to the table, is that he can offer that, he can protect the players in that regards. So it won't be him necessarily creating the chances, but he will be giving others more freedom to create those chances. Is that maybe give Reece James and Ben Chilwell a license to go forward more, join the attack, create something out from the width. But himself, he won't be creating the chances. I'm going to be honest on that part. So in summary, he's a young player. He still has a lot to improve on, but he's already a good player. He's going to improve as he has improved consistently every season. I think that we've been linked to a defensive midfielder that can play as a center back. I think he should definitely be on our watch list, one of our options. He's going to be a cheap signing, a bargain signing, in my opinion. He's a good passer. He's good defensively. I think is that the more he trains, the more he improves, we can rely on him even more. And I honestly think he can cut it at Chelsea. Maybe other people won't believe it. So maybe a compromise might come in. We buy him this season and loan him. You never know. I'm not going to say that, but I do think he's ready to come in and play for Chelsea. I think he fills a category that we have been looking at, as has been reported. And honestly, I think he's a good player with a very bright future.
Awn, it's been absolute pleasure presenting this episode with you, and you've been great. You've presented a great argument for the club to sign Boubacar Kamara, and I appreciate that. So please take some time plugging yourself. Tell the viewers how they can find you, your content, and wherever social media that you have presence.
First of all, thank you for having me on this channel again. I mean, if anyone here is new to this channel, I would highly recommend subscribing to it. I mean, you're going to get a lot of good Chelsea content. It really is a very nice place to be. You can find me on YouTube, Let's Talk Ball with Awn. I'm currently doing videos about Chelsea players from our loan army, doing scouting reports on them, giving more Chelsea fans an idea about what they could bring to the table and where they fit in. I've done a video on Loftus-Cheek. It's out right now. You can watch it. Looking to do more players from the loan army and maybe from other teams as well. You can tell me in the comment box down below if you want me to do any other players on my channel. You can find me on Twitter at Ball with Awn as well. I do the occasional tweets. I try to cover some of the matches that I watch. And overall, that's where you can find me. I'm just a passionate Chelsea fan who's presenting his case on this channel.
Again, people, you've heard the man. His Twitter handle is on the screen, and I will provide his full information in the description section once the video is up. And please go check out his channel. He has great content. Awn is a football machine. He knows his stuff, and that's why I love talking football with him. Awn, again, it's been a pleasure presenting this episode with you, and I look forward to bringing you back in for another episode of Scouting for Chelsea, or in one of the series that I have on Chelsea Perspective. I appreciate the time again, my brother. Thank you again, and God bless you.
Thank you. God bless.